Hey, this is Gary.
This is Mike.
And Daniel. We're not professionals. We're just three addicts sharing our experiences, strength, and hope regarding recovery.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in our lives.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the 12th Step Podcast. My name is Gary.
And this is Mike.
And this is Daniel.
Welcome, guys. We have
Good to be here.
I know, I'm so excited.
Yes, so excited. We've been joking around before we even started recording.
I know. We always do the best stuff when when we're not recording.
Yes.
It's probably better that way. Well, we have an email that we're going to read, and it's going to segue nicely into what we've decided to do.
Yes.
All right. It says, and this comes from, I'm really,
It's a difficult name.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. So if I get it wrong, please.
Forgive us.
Yes. We say us, but we mean me because I'm going to be reading the name. But anyway, so this comes from Shalomi. And it says, I've really enjoyed your podcast. It has really helped enhance my sobriety and recovery. I've been in recovery in SA for close to 3 years, and I have been listening to your podcast for most of the time. I appreciate how you delve into topics based out of your own experience, strength, and hope. It has a different and uniqueness not found in a typical AA or SA talks, or in other recovery podcasts, such as Betrayal Trauma podcasts as well, etc. Thank you. So thanks for reaching out to us, and thanks for sharing. I really, really appreciate that.
And thanks for the compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, we stand out, apparently.
Well, we're outstanding somewhere in a
Yes.
field, I guess. So what we decided to do, you mentioned a lot of different 12-step groups and how this is a little bit different. So we thought that we would take a little inspiration from that. And in a number of the groups that we mentor and the 12-step groups, we kind of gathered a collection of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do this kind of rapid fire style. And we're just going to address a couple of these questions that we pulled from, actually, I believe that Daniel did most of the research on this for us, but we're going to answer some of these questions just kind of in quick succession and see where it takes us.
So just to let you guys know, we're probably going to stretch this out over several episodes.
Right, yeah.
We'll probably address like 2 to 3 per episode, but we're going to stretch it out. And we're going to do something a little bit different, but at the same time, give you the information you need.
And then if any of these you'd like us to delve into a little bit deeper,
mm-hmm.
or brings up other thoughts or other questions or topics, then reach out to us and let us know.
Yes.
All right. So the first one's kind of a big one. So we're going to let Mike answer it. It says, so it's more of a statement that says, letting go and giving up ego for God's will. I think, now this is interesting the way that it was phrased.
Yes.
And I think that a better way to ask the question is, how do I turn my life and will over to the care of God?
And let go of my ego.
Right.
Yeah.
Let go of my ego.
Yeah, I mean, this is always an interesting one. It's step 3,
mm-hmm.
really. And sometimes we even have to revisit it. Even though we've worked through step 3, sometimes we find ourselves, and I think it even says in the book, sometimes we find ourselves wrestling that control back, and we have to realize we got to let go of it again and give it back to God.
I also think it's easy to don't get lost in the weeds over much by trying to define what God's will is.
Yes.
I find that my life has gone much, much better when I've learned to take life on life's terms and know that every opportunity or situation I find myself in is a learning opportunity where God gives me the opportunity to become more than I was before. And usually I like to go into those situations with asking myself the couple questions. What can I learn from this? What are the gifts?
Mm-hmm.
What are the gifts?
Yeah.
What can I learn? And then be grateful.
I mean, I definitely know for me, Mike's been kind of quiet.
I think he's doing a great job
Yeah.
answering this one.
But I mean,
That's because every time Mike tries to say anything, someone else pipes up.
okay. Well,
That's the difference of being in a different location.
that is true.
That's how that works.
That is true. But for me, like I remember in previous me before diving into recovery, when something bad would happen, it would be like, it'd be the end of the world. It'd be like, why are you throwing something else at me? Me kind of cursing God. Like why? Like he's this punitive person just throwing every brick and rock my way. Now, even with the most recent thing that I've gone through, it sucks, but I step away from it with being present and having okay, what do I need to take away from this? What do I need to learn? What am I missing? And this last time for me, I realized that, we all have to work, and work is just something we have to do to make ends meet, to pay for things. But I realized I made the job a part of who I was. That was, a hat that I can hang up on. And coming back from that, I'm like, that's not who I am. That's not a part of me, and I need to realize that's something I do. So looking back at this experience, I'm seeing that as, okay, God was trying to teach me a lesson, like you kind of said. What was the gift, or what was the lesson here? And that's kind of how I see things now. But I have to make sure the ego isn't sitting there saying, curse you, why are you doing this?
I'm going to interject here for just a second,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Yeah, go so.
As I read this, and I keep reading it over and over and over again, I come back to, I do this a lot, but I come back to the 9th step promise. There's a line in the 9th step promise. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I think that plays very nicely into what we're talking about here, this letting go and giving up ego, if you will, for God's will. One of the promises that recovery provides to us is the fact that at some point in time, as we learn to let go, that God sort of fills in the gap, if you will, and things start to happen in a better way for us. And I always love that. I always love the fact that things that I was trying to force in my own addictive acting out behaviors, the thing I was working so hard to try and accomplish for myself, that when I started to let go and realize then that God could do so much better for me than I could do for myself, and it required letting go and giving up some of that control. Control in the world of addiction is a horrible thing. So I think the 9th step promise answers some of that for us, and I love that about that.
Yeah, I come to believe that God is an amazing chess player that's already 7 moves ahead of me.
Yeah.
And if you've ever played chess, when you start feeling like you're losing, you start getting frustrated and stressed out, and then you start making really bad choices, which is kind of like what we do in life. But he's still playing the correct way, and even when we make a bad move, he's still making moves to make sure we still fall in the place he wants us to, as long as we allow that.
For our benefit.
Yeah.
For our benefit.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say for our benefit, in the sense that once we start realizing that, once we start allowing him to work in our lives, and again, we make no effort whatsoever here to define God for anybody in their own life. It could be a
Correct.
tree if they want it to be a tree, but whatever it is, that definition then allows then God to work in their lives, work in all of our lives in a way that we couldn't accomplish ourselves by forcing some level of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to say that I find, now the thought has slipped my mind. It'll come back to me in a minute. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I apologize.
No,
it's fine.
It's my fault.
No. What? Okay, I remember my thought. I like to think I think God is the greatest maker of lemonade that there is. And when we learn to turn our will and our life over to his care, even the things that are bad have a way of ennobling us or making us more than we were before. I don't think anything is wasted.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you really do that all things will work together for your good. That doesn't mean, because there's always going to be hard things to go through, because that's how life works, but I don't think anything's wasted. Mike.
I was just going to add to that. I
Yeah.
mean, all three of us have gone through the hardships and the hell of this addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we just got an email from a listener that said how grateful they are for our experiences that we open up about. So again, it relates to that lemonade you
Yeah.
were talking about. It's turned out for our good, but it's also benefiting others from our
And it
experience.
has meaning outside ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good sign. Hey, Mike, you happened to mention the 9th step promise in your explanation. Well, one of the questions that we had is the 9th step promise real? Do you want to jump into that?
We're going to let you explain,
Yeah.
expound upon that, because Gary's answer was very short.
Yeah, I can save it to the end. I can give it to you right now too. Yes. Go ahead, Mike. I hope I didn't steal your
first of
thunder.
all, I'm a big believer in the 9th step promise. The 9th step promise for me has lots of meaning to it. I have found on multiple occasions that the applicability of the 9th step promise in my own recovery. And so, yes, the short answer, if I say 50 million words, I'm going to come back to the short answer, and that is the 9th step promise is absolutely real. Because I've seen it applicable in my own life, and I've seen it applicable in others who are working through their steps in recovery. So yes, but some of the things that really, really resonate with me, and I'm just going to read a couple of these things. I won't read the whole thing because you can Google it and see what it is, but a couple of things that really resonate. We'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. That is a true statement. One thing about addiction and addictive behavior is it's very selfish and it's very isolating. And when we find recovery, we find ourselves losing interest in selfish things and gaining interest in fellows, and that's a big deal. Self-seeking will slip away. Again, coming back to this idea of how selfish and how isolating addiction and addictive behavior is. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. I think each one of us who are part of this podcast have their own experience in their lowest of lows. Gary's been kind enough to share his story, and we talked very seriously and solemnly about where he was at in that particular spot. Daniel and I both experienced some really incredibly low moments. The idea of our whole attitude and outlook on life will change as a result of recovery. Is the 9th step promise real? Absolutely. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We'll intuitively know, I love this one, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. I can't tell you how many times I acted out because I was baffled as to what to do with my in my own business or in my own personal life or whatever the case may be. I was literally baffled, and as a result of recovery, things seem to just work out so much better. So yes, for me, the 9th step promise is very real.
Daniel mentioned just a minute ago how the things that would happen in his life were like catastrophes.
Yes.
And now it's just like, well, that sucks. Let's go ahead and.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, things used to baffle me. Like what am I supposed to do? And I would be depressed. It would take weeks for me to finally pick myself up and trudge forward. And now it's just like, all right, this sucks. What's the next right thing to do? I mean, that's literally the what goes through my head. What's the next right thing to do? And then I'd write down a list or, the things I need to do, or I would just start doing those things and mentally keep track of those. So it's changed quite a bit. Yeah, I still feel kind of blah about it, but I'm still doing things. I'm not just like laying on my couch, like, hiding from the world with a blanket over my head. Like, woe is me. I'm miserable. I'm this horrible person. I'm a victim and blah, blah, blah. It's okay. The situation sucks. How do I take control or how do I not control? How do I manage this situation so that when I get through this, things are better than they would have been? And that's what I've been doing the last several weeks with the stuff going on.
Interestingly enough, Daniel, I was going to say, interestingly enough, Daniel, the 9th step promises actually addresses that. We will not regret past nor wish to shut the door on it.
Yeah.
Let's see, we're going to find a new freedom and a new happiness. We will comprehend the word serenity and we'll know peace.
Yep.
That's exactly what you're describing.
Yeah.
And then this sentence, no matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. We started off this whole entire podcast from an email from a listener saying, thank you so much for what it is you're doing. You're seeing how it is that your experiences, as miserable as they have been, our experiences, as miserable as they were, are benefiting the lives of others.
Yeah.
I don't see how anyone could read these sentences in the 9-step promise and not come away realizing the fact that that they're real, that they're benefits of recovery, and they're powerful.
Yeah, and to be fair, the people that are asking this question are people that are just starting out. I mean, we're down the road enough that we can see those things.
Sure.
And so it's hard to say, okay, all these things, how is that possible? Because it's hard for them just to survive day to day.
Sure.
Without the addiction coming up. I remember those days; they were hard. But you keep working it, and eventually you get to a point where it's like, wow, okay,
no, it's real.
It's real.
In fact, in the 9-step promise, I think it says before you're halfway through.
Yeah.
Right, Mike? What's it say?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Before you're halfway through.
It says, let's see, it says, for painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it is. It's the truth. It's amazing how you get far enough down the road, and I think we have to be halfway, about halfway through, so that we can look back and realize, wow, God, my higher power or God has been doing things for me.
Oh yeah.
These promises that have been made here are working to my benefit.
Right. Right.
If I remember the first day I met Gary, and if that day Gary would have said, one day you and I are going to do a podcast together, and we're going to have Mike join us, and we're going to be helping people all over the world, I would have gone, you're crazy, because I couldn't even manage my own day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. But now I am. We're doing the podcast. Off and on, we're mentoring groups. We do SAA and that. And our experience is benefiting other people.
Oh, yeah.
And not only is it benefiting my life, my family's life, but it's also benefiting other people's life, which is just amazing.
I'm going to interject here. I remember the first time I met Gary. Now, keep in mind, my first night or two of attending my Sage One meeting, Gary was not present. So he came the second or third or fourth night, whatever it was. And Shane's comment was, in the introduction was, I like to bring guys here, help mentor the group, things like that. And I think, Gary, you had about 4 years worth of clean time at the point in time. And his comment is that where you are at now, we can be. We all have what it is that you want. And that comment has always stayed with me. So yes, Daniel, your comment is very real. So many of these people who are asking the question of the 9-step promise real are at a place in their recovery where, those seem like far off goals or ambitions that seem like a pipe dream at that particular moment in time, because I felt that. I know what that felt like.
Yeah.
But I know full well also that as I walked the path of recovery and focused on things that were important and that keep me in a good place, then one day turned into a week, and then the week turned into a month, and then a month turned into a year, and before I knew it, I started to amass a little bit of clean time and started to realize that I am in that place where Gary was at,
Yep.
and that how exciting it was to say, wow, I've found my way out of this mess. It's been helpful to really look back on all of that and to understand that. So anyway, yes, that's exactly right.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Yes, the
it
9th
is.
step promise is very real.
It is.
All right. And then to wrap up this episode, we got one more question.
All right.
How to maintain your recovery. How do you maintain your recovery?
Well, I know what I do. I have found a couple of things that are very helpful for me. One of the early on discoveries of my addictive behavior is that I live by no rules. And so by implementing certain kinds of habits or traditions or routines are helpful for an addict who is working hard on recovery. Find the things that you know work and stay with those things. Always, always, always stay to the routines that you know help you get where you need to be. And I think that was very helpful for me when I started to establish some boundaries and some routines associated with that, whether it's reading. I read an awful lot of material about recovery. I read an awful lot of material about my own spiritual life and my spiritual well-being. I read a lot about an awful lot about just stuff that I enjoy reading. I have 4 or 5 books going on at any given time. I like to listen to podcasts. I like personal gain and knowledge and that sort of stuff, and that's helpful for me. All those things are helpful, and a routine around that helps me a lot.
Yeah, those are great things. I mean,
I think the thing that has helped me the most at some point in my journey, I stopped thinking of my recovery as something separate from my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind
Absolutely.
of, when you first get into it, you think, oh, recovery, or that's what I do on Thursday nights at 6:00 or whatever. And no, but when I realized at some point, and maybe it happened a little at a time, and then I realized it all at once, it was like, no, recovery is just living the life that you were supposed to have it. And when I realized that every aspect of my life, no matter what it is I'm doing or who I'm talking to, is an opportunity to practice my recovery, to practice the skills, then maintaining it became just part of living. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, I mean, for me, very similar. Part of the biggest things that helped me maintain my recovery is, one, my addiction I separated. Instead of it being, yes, I still say I'm an addict, but the addictive behaviors were behavior. It wasn't me. So that helped me do that. And then, making recovery part of my life. It was now my lifestyle, or it was incorporated in everything I did. I still read up on books. Yes, I still enjoy, fiction books that I read, but I still supplement in some sort of self-help book that's around recovery or addiction, or, conversing better, being in a better emotional state, or things like that help me and benefit me and help me grow. Plus, going back, kind of the fundamentals of going back and mentoring with groups. I never understood why Mike did it. It seemed like Mike was like in every Sage 1 group for the longest time, but now I kind of understand, because it allows you to kind of go back and relearn those fundamentals, and sometimes you may have missed something the last time. Oh, yeah. And then you pick that up, or there's something new because you're in a better, healthier place. And so I enjoy doing that, as well as, just, being grateful. And anytime something comes up, as we've talked about many times, why? Why is this coming up? What's going on? What do I need to learn from this? And so forth.
So
I like a couple of things too. I just lost my train of thought, so it'll come back to me.
Man, I'm the only one that hasn't happened to.
just wait. Your turn's next, man.
I know, it's coming soon.
This is in your future, Daniel. This is in your.
I know.
I was going to say that I enjoy. I enjoy the constant reminders of recovery. Every little thing that helps. I've come to the conclusion this is a fairly dynamic disease. That's what I really wanted to get at. This is a dynamic disease, which means the stuff that worked for me yesterday may not necessarily be the stuff that works for me today or next week or next month. And so I always constantly have to be revisiting. As it's almost like an onion. Our common counselor would always refer to this as peeling back the onion and finding new things. And as we find new things and are exposed to new things, we have to have a strategy to deal with those and a coping mechanism. I'm dealing with a movie right now, a TV series that I'm watching on lost family members, people who have been abandoned, put in the system, whatever. And I'm amazed at how that's affecting me emotionally. And part of that reason is because I'm dealing with an emotion that's deep-seated about being abandoned to some extent. Now, I did not experience any kind of a physical abandonment in my life, so let's be clear about that. I had good parents, but somehow, some way, I didn't connect with them, and I still don't connect with people in my life, my current family, my wife, my children. I don't connect as deeply as I need to. And so this series is affecting me in a way, and the underlying core of what's addressing so much of my addictive behavior in a lot of cases has an awful lot to do with that feeling of insufficiency or abandonment of some kind. That's new for me, and I've been at this for a long time.
Yeah, I'm amazed at every time there's a storyline, something like that. My kids will look at me, "Why are you crying again, Dad?"
Yeah, right.
You know, because they're just kind of like, "Oh my gosh, Dad's crying." But then I'm like, you know, when that happens, you know, I kind of check in with myself. Okay, what is my body? What is those parts of me, those younger parts of me, trying to tell me? And then, you know, I'll sit down and journal it or ask those questions because something is trying to reach out and tell me. And I'm ready for it at this point where earlier I wasn't, which I like how it is dynamic like that. If we're healthy and paying attention, you know, we are learning something new that brought us to this addiction and why.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I guess I'll give one more simple answer and then that'll wrap this episode
That
up.
will be, yeah.
So how do I maintain my recovery?
Mm-hmm.
I do the next right thing.
There it is. See, Gary's good at one answers.
Do the next right thing. All right. So that is it for part 1 of our rapid fire question episode. So join us in our next episode for the next
next three
questions. And until then, this is Gary saying, do the next right thing.
And this is Mike saying, find the peace, do the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring.
And that was so extra special, he wanted you to find the peace twice. And this is Daniel saying, find the humility in your recovery.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
As a fellowship of recovering addicts, Sex Addicts Anonymous offers a message of hope to anyone who suffers from sex addiction. Check out saa-recovery.org.